All right, I'm going to call to meeting the regular
Call to order.
meeting of the Common Council of the City of Platteville for Tuesday, September 27th, 2016, and we will start with roll call.
Tom Knoll,
Here.
Ken Killian,
Here.
Eileen Nichols,
Here.
Amy Seabolt Wilson has been excused, Catherine Westaby. Here. Barbara Dawes.
Here.
And Don Francis.
Here.
The first item on our agenda this evening is a public hearing, ordinance 1615, plan unit development at 545 West Adams Street. If you would like to speak on this question, we do have the forms on the table as you came in, and we would ask you to fill those forms out. I see that I have a number already, so if there's anybody else who didn't know that they should be filling out a form, please do so. But we'll start with staff presentation.
Okay, the request is regarding the property at 545 West Adams Street. It's the far west end of Adams Street where it ends. The property fronts on that, and that's the prime access point for the property. The lot actually also does have a small amount of frontage on Hickory Street. The request is regarding the desire of the property owner to construct 2 duplexes on that parcel. Each duplex will have a little over 1,900 square feet in area. Basically, they're up-down duplexes, so they'll be basically built into the hillside, so the lower unit is accessible at grade and the upper unit is accessible at grade from the back. And obviously, there's driveways connecting to it. Each unit will be a 2-bedroom unit and will have an attached 2-car garage with driveways leading to each garage. The property itself is zoned R2 residential, so it does allow duplexes. But as it currently sits there right now, it would be limited to, the current zoning would limit it to 1 duplex because of the amount of the street frontage. A duplex lot has to have 100 feet of frontage and 12,000 square feet of lot area. The lot in question has a little over 29,000 square feet of lot area, so it's large enough to accommodate 2 duplexes, but it's only got about 125 feet of frontage, so it doesn't have enough street frontage for 2 duplexes, and it's kind of a triangular shape, so it's kind of unusual, so it really isn't possible to divide the lot into 2 and put a duplex on each one, because the lots, one of those lots wouldn't meet the frontage requirements of the ordinance. So instead, he's requesting a plan unit development to allow the 2 duplexes as requested. Staff generally, because it is large enough to accommodate 2 duplexes, staff would be generally in favor of the project. There are some areas of concern that we would have with the layout as presented. It's kind of been our experience with rental properties when you have a 2-car garage. It appears on paper you've got plenty of room for parking because they can park in the garage, and then there's a pad in front of the garage where you can put additional vehicles. But generally a lot of times that doesn't work, because if you got more than 2 cars, you have to move one of the cars in front of the garage to get the car out of the garage. So the tenants will not always use that space, so they would tend to park in the street or somewhere else if they do not have additional parking on site. And that is one of my concerns with that layout, that there may not be adequate on-site parking for that reason. The site, because it does have a slope, there are going to be several retaining walls constructed on the site to provide each unit at grade access. I'm not sure exactly the height of all those walls at this point, but I would be concerned if they're fairly tall that there should be some fence, landscaping, something to prevent somebody from walking over those walls accidentally. So typically it would be a fence, but they could look at some other measures as well. The way the driveways kind of access the rear of those buildings, there could be an issue with headlights kind of shining into rear yards, side yards, so I would like to see some screening, either a fence or some landscaping, to provide some screening of that situation from the surrounding property owners. And then if this part of the PUD is approved, we would like to see some additional details on the landscaping in general, as far as an appearance standpoint, and that can all be addressed as part of the next round of approvals. So this evening's request is basically kind of the general approval to approve the 2 duplexes generally according to this site plan or with the modifications that are approved. If that part of it's approved, then the additional information would be approved, and we would go through the round of approvals again for the additional details. The Plan Commission did consider this item at their September 12th meeting. That ended with a recommendation for denial on a 4-2 vote. Some of the same concerns that staff had recommended came up. There were also some concerns about the drainage, especially on the north side of the property. That is kind of a major drainage feature for that part of the city. So there was some concern about the impact on that and how that could impact other properties in that area. I think there was also some concern about the access to the property as well. So does anybody have any questions?
All right, seeing no request for questions right now from the council, we'll have an applicant statement. If you give your name, please.
Good evening, Dan Dressens with Delta 3 Engineering. I'm working with Dan Weddick on this project. As Joe mentioned, this is we're proposing 2 duplexes. Each duplex would have 2 bedrooms in them and a 2-car garage. To accommodate some of the parking, we do have the 2, we meet the code in general with the parking, and we have the parking outside, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of the other site features. This property does have one access off of Adams Street. It does have frontage on Hickory Street. At the Plan Commission, there was some discussion about having an access to Hickory Street. Unfortunately, due to the location of the drainage ditch next to the property line, as well as a power pole, right now there is no direct access. The pole would have to get relocated, and also the stormwater tube that goes underneath Hickory Street would have to be extended. Not impossible, but probably also not desirable. Each one of these units is designed as I mentioned, as a 2-bedroom unit. Dan Weddick is done these in Mineral Point before, I believe, in your packet, and then I also handed out some additional information, a picture of what one would look like. Very similar type of a site where you have some, and they're at the end of the packet on the paper clip. And what they are is they're an upper unit and a lower unit. There is some relief on this site, as is the pictures that were as is the project in Mineral Point. They are all 0 entry and they are all higher end. The market for this is not college kids. It is meant for professionals, older people who would appreciate the 0 entry. There is a single access off of Adams Street, but at the Plan Commission meeting, Joe mentioned that he had brought this to the attention of the fire chief, and the fire chief had seen no issues with access to this property with regards to the fire trucks. In terms of hydrants, there's a hydrant right off the street at the end of Adams Street. There's also a hydrant at the corner of Adams and Short, at the corner of Short and Cedar, and at Cedar and Union Street. So there are 4 hydrants. 3 of the 4 in the area, but 3 of the 4 are very close to the site. With regards to parking, as I mentioned, there are 4 2-bedroom units. Our project provides 1 2-vehicle garage, parking in front of each garage, and we also have 4 on-site spots. The 4 on-site spots were as a result of reading the staff recommendation about adding more on-site parking. We have the ability to have more on-site parking if necessary. It just, at this time, we feel that it may be overkill, especially with having the 2-bedroom units in each one. By code, if we had 2 lots, we would have more than ample parking for this project. So if the council were to require additional parking, that's something that we can consider. There was also a concern at the Plan Commission about reduction in neighborhood green space. The very first page, of the handout that I had, basically what it is, I just kind of colored up the site plan. The greens are going to be turf grass and or landscaping. The brown is going to be the buildings, and then we also have the gray area, which is going to be a combination of concrete and asphalt. The site is about 2/3 of an acre, 0.67 acres. We are going to have about 40% of that being hard surface, and the 60% being green space. Well within the density requirements, or green space requirements that are within the code. The runoff, and the drainage swale. There was some concern about the impact of this project onto the site. Our initial plan that we had submitted, I had erroneously shown some grading down into that swale. That was incorrect. We had corrected that at the Plan Commission meeting, and we showed a retaining wall. Our intent was to never grade into that swale. We're working on the stormwater management plan. We realize how important that drainage swale is. That drainage swale actually at that point drains about 129 acres of the city. It goes pretty much all the way up to Smith Park and the pool. So there is quite a large drainage area through there. One of the concerns about this is how much runoff they are coming from this site. Because we have 40% impervious area on a 25-year storm, we're looking at about 3 to 4 CFS to be added to this drainage swale. I just did some real rough calculations, nothing official, but right now on a 25-year storm, we're looking at over 200 CFS coming through that, and that's cubic feet per second. So we've got a lot of water coming through there. The impact of this site actually to the neighboring properties is going to be very minimal. Time of concentration for the water from this site to hit that swale, to drain down to that swale, will be much faster than all the water from the other 120 acres that comes down through there. The impact from this site will basically be minimal. You will see no increase in water level because of this added impervious area because of that. And then downstream, we're talking about a 1.5% increase in water drainage. But there has been plenty of development upstream. The middle school has done work over the past years. The former hospital, that has work been done to it as well to increase the amount of runoff. So this whole drainage area has had a lot of work to it. It's a very highly developed drainage swale as well. I guess my point is that this is just going to be fairly normal for this drainage area. We already talked about access for the EMS and fire police. As I mentioned, Joe had talked with the fire chief about access, and they felt that was not going to be an issue. We also show on our plan with some of the landscaping. We are planning on doing some screenings around the perimeter of the property to make sure the headlights do not shine into the neighboring properties. That will either, like I said, be landscaping. We also have the retaining walls. We'll either be doing railings of some sort on top of them or some type of barrier from keep people from falling off of them. Rain gardens. We show 2 rain gardens on the site, 1 for each building. The rain gardens are just a nice feature. They will help slow down the rain in the smaller storms in probably your half-year to 1-year storms. They'll fill up. They'll help infiltrate some of the water the best it can with our clay soils. And they will help take off some of the initial surge of water coming off the property. There was also a concern about the feel of the neighborhood, that there were too many rentals in the neighborhood already, that they would once again be losing their green space. They are correct. This is a neighborhood that does have a lot of rentals in it. In fact, looking at I just took a little snapshot off of the GIS map. And of the 40 to 50 properties in the area, only 25% of them, were owner occupied. So this area is heavily rental, with the majority of the owner occupancy being along Hickory Street. That's one advantage of this project, is that all of our development is clustered on the far side of it, closer to Adams Street, where most of the rentals are already at. So there will be a green buffer between this property and the neighboring properties along Hickory Street. Also, by installing the duplexes, this will no longer be a cut-through lot due to our current configuration. At the Plan Commission, it was brought to our attention that there are a lot of the area residents that use that property to cut across to Hickory Street. With the configuration, with the drives, the buildings, the walls, that will no longer happen. And we were informed that someone even drove a car through there a few times. So that will not be able to happen after this project is completed. And finally, this is an infill project. This area is slated in the comprehensive plan as medium density. That's exactly what this is medium density. We're not doing high density. And by constructing new duplexes, this may prevent other single-family homes from being purchased and converted over to rentals. And I know that's a goal of the city, is to try to prevent that from happening. So. With that, are there any questions with regards to the project or layout?
Questions, anyone?
Yeah, am I to understand that there's a garage for each one, so the garages are stacked?
Yes.
And on the drawing that you provided, there's a dark line on the north border. Is that a retaining wall? What is with the dark line on where are these retaining walls that you reference?
They actually are going to be along the south line and along the east line. And then, yes, at the drive that comes off of Adams Street, there is going to be a retaining wall along there. And that's a retaining wall that we added to make sure that we don't infill into the drainage swale. And the bottom of that wall will be at a point where it won't encroach on the water elevation of that swale.
Joe, do we have requirements relative to how high walls are before they have to be, there has to be some kind of, I don't know, restraint?
What we have in the base code is if it's more than 5 feet tall within, I think 5 feet of the property line, it has to have a barrier or fence or something along the top. Some of these are getting a little close and I don't know the height, but just to be safe, I'd like to see that issue addressed in the next round if we get there.
Anyone else have any questions?
And these 2 lines between the garages?
There'll be retaining walls as well. It'd be a 2-step retaining wall to try to limit the height of them.
So there'll be a change of...
Change of elevation, yep.
Sure.
Yep. The drive along the south, the upper units obviously will be accessed from the south, and the lower units will be accessed from the north. So that's the two, so the south elevation will be the higher one.
The south elevation is the higher.
Yes.
Other questions? All right, seeing none, we are going to go on to public statements in favor. I do not have anyone who has registered in favor. All right, public statements against. The first individual will be Charlie Chamberlain. If you come up to the microphone and give your name and your address, please. And if you could limit yourself to about 5 minutes, that would be great. If not,
Thank you. Oh, yeah, we have this.
thank you.
My name is Charlie Chamberlain. I own some property right across the street from this development at 560, 570, 580, 590 West Adams. I've owned this property for close to 30 years in that neighborhood. And pretty familiar with the winters and the summers and what goes on there. I'm not in favor of this. It's just too much. There's a possibility of 16 tenants total here. Way too much traffic, no parking available for these cars. Mr. Carroll says that he checked with the fire department. Well, this time of year you can go down there and drive anything down there. But when winter comes, we can't find the curbs anymore. Cars parked on the side of the street. It's hard for the garbage trucks to get down. I own 3 driveways here. These driveways have been blocked more than once. It's a problem. There's way too much congestion. There's only one way in, one way out. The stacked parking. That means if someone behind someone isn't there, or is ill, or the car's broke down, a car can't be moved. In the case of a fire, an emergency of some sort, there's a problem, a big problem. At the planning meeting, there was the same talk about professionals living there. This is a dead-end street that's university people all around it. I can't imagine a man and his wife or a child, man, wife, child, with 4 students next door. We know what goes on with the students. They have fun, gets a little loud. Professional people aren't going to stay there. They just aren't going to. I have 1 student in my 4 occupancies. I don't have any trouble there because it's private where I'm at. It's back in there. This is going to change all of that. I guess my biggest concern here is just the traffic. There's some other people going to have, Mrs. Beals is going to have some trouble with the water. Right now, currently, the snow is plowed right down to the guardrail. I don't know if you people have been over and see this location. And that guardrail gets full, and it's banked. I've seen it where the fire hydrant couldn't be found on a snowy winter. Until you call down and tell them there's a problem. The city's there, they'll take care of it, but it happens. Now where's the snow gonna go? And where it banks up, it's gonna just make it even tougher for Mrs. Beal. There's gonna be more water come thaw. It's just too much for too small an area. And this paper here proves that. I guess that's all I've got to say.
Thank you.
Questions?
I do have a question. You said you're at 560, 70, 80, and 90?
560, 570 is 1, and 580, 590, yep.
Thank you.
Next is Ben Ballweg.
Thank you.
Hello. Short introduction. My name is Ben Ballweg. My wife Patricia's, and I reside in our home at 400 Short Street with our family. It's at the corner of Adams and Short Street. I have come to express our strong disagreement with and share our concerns about the proposed planned unit development for the property at 545 West Adams Street. Our neighborhood, which is a mix of homeowners, renters, is well cared for with open green spaces. The proposed design looks to maximize profitability at the expense of our neighborhood and of the individuals who reside there. My wife and I have spent the time between the Plan Commission meeting and tonight learning about the zoning laws that govern our city. We found the concerns we raised are embodied in Chapter 22 zoning, Section 22.07. Plan unit development subsection C, D through F, approved criteria for the plan unit developments. And it's listed at the end of the letter. These are our concerns. Number of potential renters. Developer's stated intention is to lease to elderly or young professionals. This is an intention, not a guarantee. It cannot be enforced now or in the future or by any future owners. However, the possibility exists that the number and type of rental units could allow up to 16 people who would bring vehicles to a property with restricted street access. Adams is a dead-end street with very limited parking. It is at full capacity during the winter parking restriction season. The Adams and Short intersection does not have traffic control signage. The possibility exists to double, if not triple, the traffic flow. There have been and continue to be several new rental units being built in Platteville. There has been no documentation showing that there is a compelling need to change this R2 zone to a PUD district that would negatively affect the surrounding neighborhood. fire and rescue safety. Accessibility for the fire and rescue is questionable, especially for those living in duplex number 2. This is particularly concerning for our neighborhood should a fire occur. We have an excellent fire department. However, it is pretty clear by looking at the property and the proposed location of buildings that firefighters would be disadvantaged by the distance to access their equipment and the fire hydrants. Runoff and drainage. The waterway that runs the length of the north side of the sloping grassy property has run full with the heavy rains that we've experienced. On the EPA's website, they point out, according to the USGS, an impervious man-made surface will generate 2 to 6 times more runoff than a natural surface. Multiple websites state that a 1,000-foot roof will generate about 600 gallons during a 1-inch rainfall. This would account for the runoff amount of only one area in this PUD design of multiple impervious surfaces. At the Plan Commission meeting, our concern was met with one more lot won't make a difference. We disagree. With a growing understanding of stormwater management and the protections for the environment, each design is part of a greater whole and does make a difference. Please note that this waterway runs down to the area by Stonebridge Apartments, which already experiences washouts. There has been no overriding benefit shown in regard to this proposed plan unit development for the Platteville community that would exceed any significant negative impact to our neighborhood. We, the local residents, should be shown greater respect for a design that recognizes the character and beauty of our neighborhood, as well as the quality of life and safety of the individuals who live there. We respectfully request that this proposal for 2 duplexes, a zoning change to a planned unit developed district, and any variances be denied. Though we recognize we are not the owners of this property, our first preference would be a single-family home. If a duplex is allowed, we would like this property kept in R2 zoning with the placement in a limited occupancy overlay district. And the chapters listed. Thank you for your consideration. Are there any questions?
Questions, anyone? All right, thank you. Next is Ellsworth Hood.
Ellsworth Hood, address is 580 West Cedar Street. It's a property adjoining the property in question to the south. So I'm obviously going to be interested since it's right next door, right? Another thing I would have to say is asking a philosophy prof to stay within 5 minutes is probably asking a lot. But fortunately, in this case, much of what needs to be said has been well said, and I do not need to repeat all of that. I do have a couple of angles on it, though, that are a little different, and so I'll share those with you briefly. One is, I think that it's a serious matter to make mockery of the zoning ordinance, and I think that's what this proposal does. Because in essence, what it does is it takes a quadruplex, it divides it in half, moves half of it a few feet away, builds another wall, and there we are with a quadruplex on a R2 zone lot. It's questionable in a lot of ways, but I think that's an angle on it that needs to be paid some attention to. The other issues that have been raised, I think, are, as I've said, has been reasonably well covered. The runoff issue, I think that, again, you've got the concentration The presentation 4 was talking about, last at the commission meeting, among other things, well, there isn't going to be any more rain falling on it. Well, there won't be, eh? But it's going to be channeled, eh? And it's going to come off there fast, eh? Right into Mrs. Beal's basement. Eh? It's, because it's right above it. Eh? And the angle of that stream that goes through there and where her garden is means it's going to aim right across there, right, right into the backyard of the Beals property. Right? I think that that is a very serious issue at this point that needs to be considered. Right? I think in terms of the potential renters, I think that's sort of laughable in its own way. You think about it. You know, it's illegal to tell students they can't rent there. Right? And they said, well, the price is high, not for 4. See? It's cheap, as a matter of fact. See? And it's easily within walking distance of the university. See? So, I mean, it's, I can just see the students piling in there and the cars piled all over, I don't know where. That's another issue with it. And then I think there is the impact on the neighborhood itself. And at the Planning Commission, this didn't get much of a hearing. You know, it was almost dismissed as if, well, who cares? I think that that's a problem in and of itself. But you're driving a wedge in a residential neighborhood. I live on Cedar Street. Beals's property is on Hickory Street, to the north. I'm to the south of the stream. And this thing comes right between us. A quadruplex between us and this, and you're going to preserve the neighborhood? That's nonsense. So for all of those reasons, I think that if you look at the lay of the land, if you look at the trees, you look at the privacy and the location of the city, it's a wonderful place for a single-family house. It certainly would be. And there was one there until the former owner tore it down. Yeah, put all that together, I sum up my reasons then within the 5 minutes. Thank you. Any questions?
Questions, anyone? Thank you. Carol Beals, Beals Trust.
Guess I should have prepared a handout. My apologies. Carol Beals, I'm representing the Beals Trust, and Geneva Beals is 475 North Hickory Street. So her property butts up against the 545 West Adams through the backyards, and we also, our property line is the ditch for all practical purposes. Our main focus here is that it is not all college rental and that it is significantly houses that are owned as single-family dwellings as you go north up Hickory Street. Mom has lived there for 58 years. The city has finally, when they fixed the ditch this last time, they finally fixed it to the best that it's ever been in the 58 years, and we still were unable to put anything down in the basement this year with the amount of rain that we had. The runoff that comes down from the rest of the city into that drainage ditch has also caused us to not be able to mow on several occasions because it's just too wet, too damp, too tall, too wet, period. I know that you say that the drain off and Mr. The representative from Delta 3 said, you know, he had all his figures and facts, but you really need to come down there when it rains because it is really high, really fast, really swift. And Mom pointed out tonight that the concrete that was put in the ditch is actually starting to crack and has started to decay with just plain wear and tear. And like I said, that's the best that the city has done ever with taking care of the ditch. It's a neighborhood of concern. Saturday night, there was an ambulance call down at the bottom of the hill. Friday night. And several people were concerned about whether there was an accident or, you know, what the concern was in the neighborhood. It is a community. It's not just rental property, and it's not just college students. The odd-sized lot shape would not necessarily constitute just being able to put 2 duplexes on it. I think that's a really bad reasoning to say, oh, well, we have an odd-sized lot here. We can't do anything else with it. Let's stick 2 duplexes on it. If it's zoned R2, put a single-family dwelling or stick to one duplex. I mean, why do we even have a planning commission if we're not going to at least take some of their recommendation and put it to thought with a definite 4-2 against putting this planning development in that area? He had statistics on how many CFS per foot or whatever. And I guess I don't have any, I'm not an engineer, so I can't dispute that, but I know from reality that that's not the case. I mean, it is definitely very swift water. We warn our grandkids, I warn my grandkids not to play in the ditch. It's not, with the change in the city and the amount of water that comes down through there, it's just not a good idea to change it anymore. If you put up one duplex or one housing unit, we wouldn't be here having this discussion tonight. So we would ask that you support the Planning Commission, and we adamantly oppose putting two duplexes on this property and stick to the plan. Thank you.
Thank you. We don't have anyone else who's asked to speak, but we do have two individuals who have registered against the project, Pat Ballweg and Gary Prohaska. Are there any public statements in general?
I'll speak quick. Dan
Certainly.
Dan Whittick, I'm the owner of that lot. There's a lot of talk about traffic and vehicles, you know, and I know I can't guarantee what happens in the future there if that place was sold. But these are extremely high-end rentals. They're gonna rent for like $1,200 a unit. They're 2-bed, 2-bath, walk-in closets, custom cabinets, and crown molding, and et cetera. But there's no way I don't rent to I don't stockpile college kids in these units. They're for young professionals, and I rent to a lot of seniors that want to get out of their homes, want to get out of this, stop dealing with steps, and more elderly friendly. The reason I'm trying to possibly put 2 duplexes on there, it's R2, and it well exceeds the footage requirements that it would allow 2 duplexes if it had the frontage. That's the only problem. It's difficult to get the frontage because of the odd shape of the lot. So, any questions?
Questions, anyone? Thank you.
I do have a question. Do you have other rentals in Platteville? Or are your rentals in Mineral Point?
I have a couple in Platteville, Mineral Point, Keeler, and Dubuque. Yeah.
All right. Next item is council discussion.
Can I mention something? I want to just inform everybody, the city of Platteville does not have an ordinance stating that students are a protected class for discrimination. So if the situation is, if a landlord does not want to rent to a student, they are not required to rent to them. So I just want to clarify that for people that say that students can move in. They are not classified as discrimination under the city, because we do not have an ordinance for that. Neither does the state. So just want clarification for that, because I deal with rental properties. And if somebody doesn't want a student to live on their property, they have every right to say no to a student. So I just want that clarified for everyone to know that. Because if a landlord wants to not have students, and they say they're not going to have students, then they have every right not to have students. So I just want everybody to know that, just for clarification. This is a situation that I find is this developer is trying to meet a situation that we have in Platteville where we don't have enough professional housing. He is setting up to meet a need that we need. We have one developer on the north side of town who is doing the same thing, putting up duplexes, and he's getting them sold or he's getting them rented. However, we still need more. I'm not saying I'm in favor of this. I'm not saying anything to that. I'm just saying you have to understand when we have a developer coming in to meet some of those needs, we have to take a look at that. I have a great concern for those neighbors, and I do have a great concern for the amount of water that comes down through that drainage system. I've looked at it, and I'm not an engineer, and I don't know whether that's going to cause a problem or not, but I can understand the concerns of especially Mrs. Beal. I can also understand the concerns of the neighbors concerning the traffic and also the situation with fire and rescue. This isn't easy for any of us. I think we need to have more discussion tonight or maybe even further, but I just wanted to let you know about what I thought. Thank you.
Other comments? Questions?
I have a couple comments. Myself, I believe in a mix of people in a neighborhood, and by that I mean a mix of single-family homes and renters, where renters tend to be located as far as access to university. So instead of having a high concentration of renters near the university, I believe that a mix of single-family and renters is still a good idea, because the single-family people tend to help as far as the neighborhood, as far as controlling the atmosphere in the neighborhood, if you want to call it parties in particular. Those neighborhoods are better. That's been my experience as far as what I've seen. This particular property, I believe, is too crowded. Too crowded as far as access to it, and also it just is too crowded as far as the access going around on the property itself. So I don't like that setup. I would favor, instead of 2 duplexes, I would favor single family or 1 duplex. So those are my comments for now.
Other comments?
I do want to say I understand the constraints of this property and attempting to build towards the more dense or more multifamily homes that we need, but I think we do need to take in consideration the access, as Ken stated. So I think there needs to be a little bit more discussion on this property.
Anyone else?
I'm not convinced that this street, as we currently have it configured, and the access as it's currently proposed is adequate, and I still have a deep concern about the water runoff. So that's my...
Similarly, I think it's trying to squeeze too much into something that doesn't seem to work. A single family, a single unit would seem to make more sense and not affect too much of the odd lot that it is. it's not taking in consideration that it is such a strange lot, just trying to fit it in.
I would concur with some of the comments made. I too feel that a duplex, and my preference would have been a single-family home next to the duplex, but the frontage would not permit that either, so I think that 2 duplexes on this particular lot are too much. Anybody else have any other questions or comments? If not, we would need a motion to close the public hearing.
I move to close the public hearing.
Second,
We have a motion and a second, and we'll vote.
Null,
Yes.
Killian,
yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Westerby,
Yes.
Doss,
Yes.
Francis.
Yes,
Motion carries.
So the common council action would be to approve or not approve the planned unit development on 545 West Adams. The request is for a planned unit development.
I move that we disapprove the PUD.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. We'll vote.
Null,
No.
Killian,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Westerby,
Yes.
Doss,
Yes.
Francis.
Yes,
Motion carries.
Thank you all for coming. Next item is consideration of the consent calendar. The following items may be approved in a single motion and vote due to their routine nature of previous discussion. Please indicate to the council president if you would prefer separate discussion and action. A is council minutes of the September 13th, 16 regular meeting. B is payment of bills. C is appointments to boards and commissions, and I would note for anyone in the audience this evening that we have applications on the back table for boards, commissions, and committees. We always need citizen input, and it's also available on the website. As far as appointments this evening, the Board of Appeals, a 3-year term ending 10/1/19, Tom Lindahl will be taking that position. The Community Development Board, a reappointment of Lauren Führer. The Water and Sewer Commission, beginning 10/1, is Max Anderson. And we need a replacement for Barb Stockhausen for the Platteville Transit System Committee, and Barb Dawes has volunteered to serve on that. So those are the appointments for this evening. In your packet, there are licenses, 1-year and 2-year operator licenses to sell and serve alcohol, the names in the requests. E is a permit to UW Platteville for the Homecoming Torch Run on Saturday, October 15th. And F is a resolution proclaiming October 2016 as United Nations Month. I note that Mr. Killian has a question on the minutes, so if you would like to make a motion to remove that to discuss?
Yes, I'd like to have that removed from your consent motion, and we'll consider that separately, the minutes of 9/13.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar with the removal of A, the council minutes. We'll vote.
Null,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Westerby,
Yes.
Doss,
Yes.
Francis.
yes.
Motion carries.
So, Mr. Killian, you have a question on the minutes.
I would like to make a small addition to the minutes of the 13th under Action A, Stormwater Management Plan. And my addition is this, and you received a copy of this short sentence. Changes for content, typos, and grammar will be made after approval by DNR. Now, I'd like to explain this a little bit. Content would be any changes that DNR is asking the city to make. So that's not by the council, but by DNR. Typos, I read the preliminary, 35-page of that plan, and I read the 47 pages for the other plan, the second one, dated the 23rd. I found a considerable number of typos. And then there were also a number of grammar corrections that I felt should be put in there. So it reads, changes for content, typos, and grammars will be made after approval by DNR. So this is my addition. We did talk about that a little bit at the meeting, that this would be done. I'm assuming that the Common Council will get a final finished copy of the stormwater management plan. So I would move that we approve these minutes with this change. It's an addition.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Howard will we receive a final copy to review?
Once the DNR has approved the stormwater management plan, we will make the final document available to the council and to the public.
I went
With
over-
the corrected, with the corrections as
I went
as
over
we've
the
discussed.
corrections with Howard, went over the corrections with the city manager one day, and so they know what they are.
Correct, and we've discussed that with Delta 3, and yes, that's fine. Our only concern was content changes by the city, and you clarified that, so I appreciate that.
All right. We have a motion and a second, and we'll vote.
Nall,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Westerby,
Yes.
Dawes,
Yes.
Francis.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next is citizens' comments, observations, and petitions, if any. If anyone in the community or in the audience has a comment they'd like to make, this would be the time to do so. All right,
I'd like to make a comment.
all right.
All right, we have probably literally, I don't know how many streetlights do we have in the city, Howard?
I do not know the final number.
Literally hundreds, maybe thousands. And you know, all of us probably see that there are streetlights that are out that should be repaired. And tonight I pointed one of those out to Howard, and he pointed out to me that Alliant Energy actually on their site has a place that you can go and report streetlight outages. So I would suggest that if you see a streetlight in your neighborhood that is out, rather than continuing to say, the street light is out, it would be nice if somebody fixed it, that you actually take action and go to the Alliant Energy site, report that you're from Platteville, you're in Wisconsin, and then report the location so that Alliant Energy can get on it and fix that light. Sometimes we fail to do the simplest things. We talk about it, but we don't take action. So my suggestion tonight is, when you see a light out, take action.
And I hate to put anything more on Howard, but that happened in my neighborhood, and I went to Howard. I didn't realize I could go online to
Right.
Alliant Energy.
And I went to Howard tonight too.
And he
and I-
did follow up, and they did repair them.
Yes, just so that you know, before the council meeting, I had it all done online.
I know it doesn't really take long, and that's why I'm saying, if everybody does a little, then no one has to do a lot.
And I think, yeah, the perception probably is that the city should be replacing them, and it's not
And
the
it's
city
really
that
not
is
the
able
city,
to
it's an
replace them.
Alliant Energy thing. So by all means, go online, if you're a street light, or if there's a light on your street out, report it, and it'll get fixed. And then if it doesn't get fixed in a timely manner, call the city.
All right. Anyone else have anything to comment on? All right. In our, that's it?
I'm done.
All
But
right,
you-
in our packet, reports, board, commission, committee reports, museum board, Seaboth Wilson, unfortunately, she's not here this evening. Plan commission, Nichols and Knoll, I have nothing to add.
Nothing.
Airport commission, Dawes.
Nothing to add.
Parks, Forestry, and Recreation Committee, Westerby.
Nothing to add.
Community Safe Routes Committee, Francis.
Just one thing from that August meeting. There was concern about some areas on the trail that we want to improve safety in some way, shape, or form. Slow bikers down, mainly. And I'm actually working on our project that's going to help it in some way. So on October 8th is the Embrace Citizenship Day for the university. And I have a class that I'm instructing that I'm gonna take out, these 25 volunteers. And we're gonna help beautify the trail. But one of the things in particular, which I'm working with an art professor. We went to the PCA meeting, this last one, and they approved a lot of ideas, including the one about stenciling a turtle and says "slow down" onto the trail itself. And there's some key locations as a helpful reminder. It's a easy, quick fix for now. Instead of making signs and whatnot that have to be cut around or something like that. So that'll be addressing at least one of their issues a little bit.
Great. Thank those volunteers for helping.
Let's see how they do first.
Our first action item, Resolution 1619, amending the 2016 fee schedule, temporary signs.
I'll take this. The council took action at their public hearing in August to create separate fees for the permanent signage and temporary signage. The attached resolution revises the fee schedule to include this directive. The temporary signage will be for residential, it'll be $10 per sign. Additional business product advertising will be additional $10, and special event will be $25. Our permanent signage is $50, $100, and $150. So it just solidifies the council action.
Any questions? Is there a motion?
Move to approve Resolution 1619, amending the 2016 fee schedule for temporary signs.
Second to the motion.
We have a motion and a second. We'll vote.
Nall,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Westaby,
Yes.
Doss,
Yes.
Francis.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next item is Delta 3 contract extension, 2017-2019.
Yes. Delta 3 has been doing the contract engineering work for the city since 2010. We had intended to bid that out for this year due to a number of unforeseen items that have come up that have been on my plate, to include lead service line replacement and library block issues and other things like that. The city manager and I decided that it would be best if we ask for an extension. Delta 3 has proposed an extension with an average increase of 3% for 2017 and would hold those rates through 2019. That would be their first increase in 6 years, if we're approved. So they've been doing good work for the city, and staff would approve that extension.
Questions or comments, anyone?
I have a couple.
Yes.
First of all, I'll say that I am in favor of extension of the contract, but I have a couple of concerns. One is timing. In particular, the timing as far as the stormwater management plan. The plan was due to the DNR by what, the 28th of August, something like that? And the preliminary plan from Delta 3 was dated August 15th. So it didn't give us time as a council to approve or disapprove the plan before it had to go to DNR. So the thing that it came to the council for the meeting in August. It came to the council for the meeting, and I asked Colette whether the preliminary plan was the one that we're going to vote on. She said yes. Well, then Dan called me on a Friday before and said that he could give me a copy of the most recent plan write-up, which was dated August 23rd. So I'd read 35 pages of the preliminary, and then I read 47 pages of the 823 plan. And so timing, was not good. So we need to improve timing on some of these things. I don't know what went wrong as far as this particular plan, but it didn't give us time to consider it, to go over it, as far as council members. So that's one factor, one point. And then, so how can that be corrected? Do you have an answer that you can give me now, or what? Pardon?
No.
Yes, if you would come up to the microphone, please, Dan.
I don't know what happened here, that it was late to the council, but
Sure.
things like this have
It-
happened before, and we receive sometimes bills that we're supposed to be paying when the approval has not been done yet by, say, the plan commission. So these things have happened.
Correct. Well, first of all, we had a work session in June to pretty much go over the entire content of the plan. There is actually no requirement of the DNR for the council to approve it. So we were basically, it was coming to the council as basically a courtesy, since we've already done the work session, and then we're going to review the stormwater management plan. So basically, the deadline to getting the draft not the draft, but the final to the DNR was August 23rd, and that was the deadline that we met, with bringing it to the council to understand what the full ramifications of the plan were and what the next council actions were going to be. The ordinance updates, starting some of the other education and outreach programs, some of the other components of the plan.
My response is that even though it's a courtesy, the plan, this is the second thing, the plan to me had too many typos in it and too many grammar mistakes to be sent forward to DNR. To me, it's a reflection upon the city of Platteville, the city manager, the city council, the director of public works, that a document will go forward with so many changes needed. As far as the typos.
I would respond to that is that, yes, there were some typos. However, of the typos, there were many ways of talking about a certain topic, and that the number of typos that were redlined by Professor Killian, maybe I did not agree with, and probably will, and did not get changed and will not get changed, because some of them affected how the content of the report read. So there is always two ways to do things. However, I will admit that there were a few typos, and I was slightly embarrassed by the number there were. I would say that previous reports written by Delta 3 Engineering, and me in particular, have been very typo-free.
But this particular one, on 47 pages, I found 51 typos, which is 1.1 per page. On a preliminary plan, you had 24 and 35 pages, which is 0.68, which is fewer. And I do disagree with your statement that my typos suggested, as far as changed the content. They did not. Now, when you have two, I can start going through these things, but I don't think it should be
Right.
done
Maybe
here.
you and I should meet sometime and we can review them together, and then we can just decide which way it should be.
And I disagree with that point.
Okay. Point taken.
So how is this going to be improved in the future? That's my second question.
How is,
Well, when a document comes to us, I expect it to be more well-written.
we will work on that then, Ken. And if I have to hire a professional writer to review it, then I will do that.
Okay. Because as I said before, it reflects upon the city and us. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Right, thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I make a motion, we approve the extension of Delta 3 engineering contract with the city of Platteville for the time period 2/17 to 2/9.
I'll second.
The motion and the second? We'll vote.
Null,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes.
Nichols?
Yes.
Westerby?
Yes.
Doss?
Yes.
Francis?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Under information and discussion this evening, we have information about a rectangular rapid flashing beacon for UW Platteville.
Yes. Rectangular rapid flashing beacon is a relatively new concept for traffic safety. Most all of you have seen the yellow diamond signs that have pedestrian crosswalks with the arrow. And what there is now is there's a flasher instead of those round yellow flashers that people have seen like on school signs in many places. What they have is they've got a rectangular one that fits between the pedestrian crossing sign and the down arrow sign. There are many ways of activating this. One way would be by push button, others are by passive actuation. What the university is looking at is certain areas on city streets where there are high densities of pedestrian crossings of those streets, looking at doing one of the passive actuation methods so that people don't have to push a button, they just walk up to the crosswalk and it would activate the lights. And what it does is it's in what I call a wigwag pattern where you have the two lights and flash, 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 flash. And so there's an enclosed map with the proposed location. It's Greenwood Avenue near Glenview Commons. That's a fairly pedestrian-heavy area. Technically, it's a city street, but it's mainly surrounded by just university, so it's less of a concern for the public. Other places, Washington and Maine, the mid-block crossing of Hickory Street by the Elsvik Center, at Marquee and Southwest Road, and then Southwest Road by parking lot 28. They're looking at those locations. They're also looking at redoing what they call parking lot 1 by Dowden Hall to the west of Center for the Arts. And they're looking at potentially in the future putting in crossings in that area, but they want to make sure that they do it in conjunction with however they're going to reconstruct those parking lots. So that would be a future item. The university said that they would be responsible for purchase and installation and maintenance costs. These would have solar panels for the energy, so they would just recharge battery and use battery. And like I say, as people walk towards them, towards the intersection, it would automatically detect those people and start the activation process. Studies have shown that it increases the amount of driver compliance to yield to pedestrians for the crosswalks. So we will look at that. Staff is recommending that the council approve those proposed locations installed and maintained at the expense of UW Platteville.
I have a question.
Yes.
It says, the current proposal, each crossing would get 4 signs?
What their proposal would be is that they would have a sign on each side of the road in each direction.
Yeah.
So you would have, as you're approaching the crosswalk, as a driver, you would see the pedestrian crossing sign with those signals on both the left and right side of the road. And it would flash on both sides.
Is that the common way for installation? I've never seen I mean, I've seen that.
Most of the
seen these
time
in
they're
other
on the right.
places, but I've never seen them done on both sides of the road.
It depends on the traffic and the configuration of the road, but for most two-lane roads like we have, the right side is generally okay. If you have a wider road or there's a median or something like that, a lot of times they will put them in the median so that there will be two facing in each direction.
My wife and I have driven to Madison 4 times since last Friday. I believe it was on Monroe Street. We encountered these signs, and it was something new to me. 2 of them flashing as people got into the crosswalk, 2 of them flashing towards us, and then there were 2 of them flashing for the traffic coming from the other way. I think it's a good idea. There was good compliance as far as people stopping. I certainly would recommend the installation of these signs.
I think also that it would be beneficial, especially on Hickory Street. I do have just one comment, the Washington Street, Main Street.
Yes.
The area that is marked on the road on Main Street to cross is actually the opposite side of where the sidewalk is, so that when you cross the road, you then have to cross Washington Street to go down the sidewalk. Because when Washington Street was widened, the sidewalk on the east side was removed. So maybe want to look at changing the crosswalk area as well when these signs are put up. Because I stopped today at Washington Street in Maine, and there was a student who walked across the street in the crosswalk and then had to cross in front of me to get on the sidewalk, so. Any other questions?
I think it's a good idea. I just had never seen
Yeah,
on both sides of the road.
okay.
Oh, I have a question. Why did they pick the passive versus the activated?
They do have a couple of push-button signs, for example, on Marquee Avenue, and the other one is over by Russell Hall at the corner of, at Jay and Irene. And what those are push-button activated. They have little LEDs in the corners of the signs, and they found that nobody pushes the button.
All right.
Once you step into the crosswalk, certain distance, they go on.
These that they're talking about, yes, they have a sensor that will register a person walking towards the intersection, and they will start the sign automatically.
Just a question for the whole council, or a comment. Have we ever thought about something like this for Main Street? The reason why I ask is the other day I was walking across Main Street and the traffic was backed up, and I was walking across the crosswalk, which was marked, and all of a sudden I was walking across where there was a car going up Main Street, and there was a car coming down, and I was in the crosswalk, and all of a sudden the car coming down was going maybe a little bit faster than 15 miles per hour. And all of a sudden, if I would have been 3 feet further, I probably wouldn't be here right now.
That's what I was thinking.
And so, maybe some people might think that'd be good. But that might be something that we might want to look at in the future, because as our Main Street gets a little backed up once in a while, just because of traffic, especially on a Friday afternoon, that might be something that would work, because I'm not saying that the person driving this car was, you know, maybe, you know, because of the traffic, may not have seen me as I was walking behind the one car, but he would have seen the lights flashing for sure. So that's something we may want to consider down the road,
Yeah,
especially for Main Street, because we want to keep the speed limit down, and we want to make sure that the pedestrian traffic is able to cross safely.
I'll be curious to see how they work. I'm kind of looking forward to, if the council approves it next time, I'm kind of looking forward to that.
You
All
could
right.
drive to Madison.
I could drive to Madison.
Yeah.
I'll be there probably before the next council meeting. All right. Next item on our agenda is closed session for Wisconsin statute 1985. Concerning employment, promotion, compensation, and performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, city manager review and contract, and then we will go to adjournment when we come out of the closed session. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
Also move.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to go into closed session, and we'll vote.
No?
Yes.
Killian?
Yes.
Nichols?
Yes.
Westerby?
Yes.
Doss?
Yes.
Francis?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, everybody.